Hello everybody, 大家好. That's hello everybody in Cantonese. In this video I want to talk about something called language laddering, which is when you learn two languages side by side, and the two languages are not your first language. So you may have already learned one language at a higher level, and then you want to go on and learn another one at a different level, and you can use the resources in the other language to learn the other second language. So I'm making this video as a monologue because I wanted to do this as a proper edited video with visuals and clips and examples and everything, but my editing software has broken down, and I'm just going to do this as a monologue, but hopefully so it's not too boring for you. I've got some notes here anyway, so hopefully I'll stay on track. So language laddering, or learning a language for another language. What's inspired me to make this video is that, first of all, I started learning Cantonese a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, with the use of Mandarin, because it's now become available on Duolingo. So the Cantonese course has now opened, and I'm really excited about that. I've always wanted to learn Cantonese, and I did dabble with this language a few years ago, about 8, 9, 10 years ago. I didn't really get to a very high level, so I do know some Cantonese already. But I've been learning Mandarin for about 3 years, and my Mandarin level is much higher than my Cantonese level. So I thought, what a great opportunity to learn Cantonese through Mandarin. So at the same time, I've had a new volunteer start with me. I work in a shop, and the new volunteer is from Hong Kong. So it couldn't be better timing for me to have all these resources around me, the best resource ever, to have a teacher, a person you're working with, to just be able to practice with. And then I have another volunteer who is a Mandarin speaker, and both volunteers speak both Mandarin and Cantonese, so it's really handy for me to be able to get that input from both, from all around, which is fantastic. And on Friday I worked with both of them together. I don't always work with both of them, but this particular day I worked with both of them on the same shift, and you can imagine I was in my element. I was really glad to be able to have this opportunity to learn some Mandarin and Cantonese at the same time. So language laddering is only really effective if you're at a certain level in one language. You have enough competency in that language to be able to use it to springboard to another language. And it's probably more effective if the languages are related. So obviously in my case, Cantonese and Mandarin are quite related. So the first time I came across language laddering was in 2017, January 2017. I tried to learn some Lenca, and Lenca is a language from Honduras that died out many years ago, and I was learning it as a project to help revive the language. And I was learning it with Richard Simcott, the famous polyglot who started the Polyglot Conference, and a few other people from around the world. And we had to learn this language through Spanish because the resources were in Spanish that had been gathered together to start this language off. And so I said to Richard, this is going to help me rekindle my Spanish, because my Spanish was extremely rusty. And he said, oh yeah, you'll be doing language laddering. And I said, what's that? And he said, it's where you learn another language side by side with the other language, and you get help from the language. So I did that, and it really did help me get back into Spanish. I didn't learn much Lenca, unfortunately, but I did learn a lot of Spanish. And then I had the same experience with an Italki teacher. I tried to learn some Hungarian through Spanish. And again, my Spanish improved quite a bit. And I didn't learn much Hungarian, actually. But I'm convinced that I'm going to learn a lot of Cantonese through Mandarin, because these languages are very similar, and I've already made progress, actually, by starting this Duolingo course. So let me give you some examples of how I've compared these two languages, or how how my Mandarin has actually improved since I started learning Cantonese. So on Duolingo, you have units, obviously, and you have to click on the units, and then you go do the little clips of lessons. So you get audio content, you get visual content. And in the case of this course so far, you have to obviously know the written Mandarin because all the instructions are in Mandarin. And for me to look at the Mandarin and Cantonese side by side is really interesting because sometimes the characters are the same and sometimes they're different. And sometimes the words are similar and sometimes they're just completely different, but they're always different in that Mandarin and Cantonese have different tone systems. So they're always going to be differences, even though there are sometimes words that sound similar, like, for example, like Peng Yao in Mandarin and Peng Yao in Cantonese. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, but anyway. And those two, you can, see the similarities in them, but even the numbers are completely different. So here are a couple of examples. I came across this word in Cantonese, which is exactly the same written wise in Mandarin. So in Mandarin, this is chu kou, which means an exit or to go out. And these characters individually mean to exit, an opening or a mouth. So kou is a mouth or an entrance. And in Cantonese, it doesn't sound anything like Mandarin, but it sounds quite similar. So you've got chu kou and chat hole. Chat hole. I've probably said that completely incorrectly, but I'll be practicing it because I'll be doing that Duolingo lesson again and again. So that's one example. And then I came across the word for ladder or lift, elevator in Cantonese. And this is what has inspired me to make this video, because the word for lift, I came across a new word for lift in both languages, which is futi in Mandarin, and I only knew the word for lift as dianti in Mandarin. So futi means help ladder, and dianti means electric ladder. So I knew the word for electric ladder as being lift, but not help ladder, futi. So in Cantonese, here's a sentence that's that looks different. So we've got here dianti sai nali in Mandarin. So this means electric help or electric ladder, sorry, is located where. And then in Cantonese, it's the same sort of principle, but the characters are different. And you've got much more complicated characters here. So oftentimes the characters will be much more detailed in Cantonese because they use the traditional Chinese, whereas Mandarin has been simplified. And in Mandarin, dianti sainar or futi sainar translates in Cantonese as din tai hai pin do. So din tai hai pin do, dianti sainar, those two sentences just don't sound similar to each other at all. So, and then another example, one more example is, I came across the word for bank, which is yinhang in Mandarin, and here's the character for it in Mandarin. And when I saw it written in Cantonese, it looks really similar. So the hung bit is the same, but the yin is completely different. But the sound of this in Cantonese is different. It's nyang hong, or something like that, nyang hong. So I spoke to my volunteers about this when I said I'm learning the word Cantonese for bank. And the first part of this means silver. So my Mandarin volunteer told me this quite a few months ago, that we were going through the colours. And she said to me, what's the colour for silver? And I said, I can't remember. And then she said, what's the word for bank? And I said, yinhang. And she said, the first word for silver, first word for bank is silver in Mandarin. So now I know the word for silver in Cantonese as well as the word for bank. So I said to my volunteers, we had some silver plated things in the shop. And I said, is this, I tried to say the word for silver in Cantonese and they laughed at me and said, yes, it is this. And then they taught me the word for gold. So that was quite good. So knowing a bit of, knowing one language is helping me get more vocabulary. And it's also helping me making educated guesses on words. So for example, we had some gloves in the shop. Somebody bought some gloves. And I don't know the word for gloves in Mandarin or Cantonese, but I guess the word for glove would be something like hand something. And the word for hand is shou. So the word for mobile is shouji. So I said to the volunteers, is the word in Cantonese the same principle? So it's going to be like shouji equivalent in Cantonese. And they said yes. I feel embarrassed because I can't remember the words in Cantonese actually. But knowing this, I can go back and revise the words. And then I guessed the word for aeroplane. So I said, so if shouji, which literally means hand machine, means this, then the word for aeroplane is feiji in Mandarin, which means fly machine. So I said, in Cantonese, is the word for aeroplane fei, and then the word I learned for machine, which I'd forgotten. And they said, laughed and said, yes, well done, sort of thing. So this is how language laddering is working for me in an effective way. And I think my Cantonese, I'll hopefully learn more Cantonese more quickly than I would if it were my first language. Does that make sense? Okay. What other examples do I have to show you? So my experience of the Duolingo Cantonese course so far is that it hasn't really started from basic words. So other courses I've done on Duolingo have started with hello, how are you, this is something else. Cantonese has just launched into sentences, which I'm grateful for actually, because it's giving me the Cantonese in context, which is fantastic, and it's helping me to acquire the language quite well because I already know some Mandarin, so I can see the sentences side by side. If it were just vocabulary and words, I think it would be a bit more boring for me, having known some Mandarin. And I've tried doing some Duolingo languages with this kind of format. So a good example is Ukrainian, which tends to have a lot of isolated vocabulary in the lessons, much more than other languages. So if you're thinking of learning another language, or you're scared to go on to start learning a new language, but you've reached quite a good proficient level in your language and you don't want to give it up, and you're thinking, oh, maybe I should really get to a really excellent level in this language, like a really fluent level, before I can move on, it's worth considering starting a new language, but continuing with that other language in a different way, which might help you. And it's a good use of time as well, because you're getting kind of two for the price of one. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it wasn't much more visual, but I just thought I'd give you, hopefully I can inspire you to, if you're thinking of learning a new language and you kind of not really, thinking about it, or maybe you are, I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. And I'll try to post some videos of me speaking Cantonese soon. Also, I find that me posting videos of a language is quite helpful to myself, because I can look back and notice how my pronunciation has improved, for example, or my confidence in speaking, a bit more fluently in language. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll say goodbye in Cantonese, which is bye bye.